Good morning, good day, or good afternoon. I am Bloody, and this is amazing Rex Sikes, and I'm holding his amazing book live. Let me say live on your terms. I love the title, and it is absolutely fascinating. It creates the life you want. So Rex will be talking about his passion, his message, and he's been in this field for a long time. He's really powerful and respected man in the field. And welcome. Thank you so much for your precious time, for this passion, and for really you being here and sharing your wisdom with the audience, because
Well,
it's not just about the book. So welcome.
thank you, because I wouldn't be here sharing with the audience if it weren't for you making that happen. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank
It's an
you.
honor.
My pleasure. So I think my first question will be, what's your intention for the book and obviously the message that you're sharing with the audience in your book?
It's funny because I've been blessed in so many ways. I grew up in a sort of non-remarkable set of circumstances. I mean, middle class USA kid kind of. But I felt lonely and disconnected for whatever the reasons. I felt insecure and not confident. As a child, I asked my mom, because I had been raised Catholic, if she would read motivational, inspirational books to me, which included the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, Think and Grow Rich, Magic of Believing, and all sorts of other books, because I, I did feel disconnected, but I also wanted to have whatever that priest up in the front of the church had. Had incense going around. It was in Latin. Nobody understood it. All these stained glass windows, and I figured, well, he must have a connection with somebody upstairs. So I wanted that. So I we started reading at a young age, but I ended up writing the book because in my 20s I had a crisis. I lost everything, lost a fiance, lost money, lost my career, lost my friends, lost everything. Wanted to kill myself, tried to kill myself, did all that. I devote a tiny chapter to it in the book. But I locked myself in my apartment at a certain point when I got through everything. I felt shame and guilt and remorse and worry and fear and you know um, I was just totally devastated. And I knew that I couldn't, I was like, I'm either going to die, I'm going to try and kill myself again because the first time didn't work. And I even failed at killing myself. That was how upsetting it was for me. I was like, I can't believe that it didn't. So I locked myself in the room with the kind of like, I'm either going to sit in here until I change and can face the world and claim my life back, or die in this chair kind of thing. So between 6 and 8 weeks, I stayed in this room, and in about 3 weeks, I realized that I had been sitting there going, "Why did this happen to me? What's wrong with me? How could I be so stupid? How did I lose all my friends? Why couldn't I have done this differently? God must hate me." I did all that kind of stuff, and I realized I didn't care about any of that, and I didn't know that the answer. I knew that the answers weren't going to give me anything. So I switched my questions from how soon can I get out of here? How quickly can I find ways to feel confident and alive and thrive? And as I did that, things began to loosen up and things began to show. I've been affirming, I was using hypnosis, I was meditating, I sat in a chair from morning till night. I got up to have a sandwich or to go to the bathroom, but pretty much I stayed in this chair for 20 hours a day. Maybe I slept in the chair. About 3 weeks in, I realized I'd been sending my mind my entire life, even though I'd read all this stuff and practiced all this stuff and had been doing all this stuff for, from 6 years old on, that I'd been directing my mind in ineffective ways that almost everybody does. So I came out and I started to move through the world, and I realized I had something that transformed me. And I started eventually to teach it in seminars. Had been teaching acting for children in an acting program that I was part of. I taught at USC and different things. So I I started to put together meditation, kind of affirmation workshops using what I had discovered while I was sitting in the chair. I've done that now for well over 50 years. And I've written books and stuff, but I'm not a huge fan of books because most people think, well, if I read a book, I'll know the answers. So they read like about bike riding.
Yeah.
So they know all about bike riding, but they may never have gotten on a bike. And a book is good if you've been on a bike and you now want to improve what you've done by reading about the experience that you've had and then applying the new stuff you're learning to that experience so that you can transform it into what it is that you want. But to just read a book about something is meaningless. When they do brain scans and studies imaging of the brain, if you read about riding a bike and you actually ride a bike, different parts of the brain light up.
Mhm.
Now, if you imagine riding a bike because you've seen it and you ride the bike, then similar parts light up. Or if you've ridden the bike, then the same parts light up that you would because you've had the experience of it. So I finally wrote the book because my office and I have a corporation called Idea Seminars that I created in the 90s that was a global seminar company. They always wanted me to put out books, and I kept saying I don't want to put out books because I could see what happens when people come into the seminars. They'd wait for me to say something they had read in the book, or that they'd seen in an audio or listened to in an audio or seen in a video. So I was real reluctant to put out books, and the first thing I did put out was the Ultimate NLP Home Study course because it was audio, it was video, it had a manual, so it had visual, auditory, a kinesthetic component to it. You could do, so you could work on things and do it. I put this book out because I realized after a while that I could reach more people by putting a book out about the work that I've been doing for 50 years, how important it was, and that if people would apply what I was sharing, they too could transform their lives. So that's a very long answer to your question, but I did it because I can reach everyone on the planet. I can reach 8 billion people. I can't do it alone. But if one person shares it with another person, and we don't interrupt that chain, it'll go around the entire globe. And so
Yeah.
the mission is to get everybody, whether they have the book or not, to get everybody practicing this material, this transformational approach, because most of society does not want you to know this stuff. They
Yes.
hide it, they obscure it. They have all sorts of new books coming out that are confusing and new stuff coming out here and there. The internet, how many times have you gone to read an article on the internet and you find out it's an ad for something or it's wrong?
So
It's just
true.
like so. So the point is society, governments, religion, even educators don't want you to, because if you discover your power as a creator on this planet, that we're all in it together, then you become unstoppable.
Hmm.
And they don't want unstoppable people. So the
Yes.
few that do are the ones who transform the planet. They innovate and they create and they do all these wonderful things. The few that break through are mavericks, they're pioneers. And then the rest just kind of toe the line. So I did it to try and get the rest inspired enough to claim their power to live life on their terms, which means create the life you want for yourself and help other people create the life that they want for themselves. Since we're all in it together, let's be benevolent, kind, and compassionate, understanding, peaceful, loving, and caring, and make all of it a better for all of us.
I love it. I really love it. For me, I'm gonna go, but first, I've written down idea seminars you're writing, and I'm gonna mention what we spoke before we started this interview because my grandfather used to say to me, the graveyard is the richest place on the planet because all the people take all their ideas, dreams, and experiences away. And that is where it starts. So many people just give up sometimes, or sometimes we have to, but we don't. But some people just not putting through the stuff that it's so easy. But really, everything you just said points back to the truth is the graveyard really is the richest place.
Grandfather's a very wise person, and that's just one of the most profound sayings that I think is the truism. Is there people are walking all around the planet very talented and undiscovered.
Yeah.
Whether they're a juggler, a musician, an actor, a writer, an entrepreneur, whatever. They got great ideas. They're walking all around. They just have not gotten the credit. They've not gotten noticed. They've not manifested or made happen the things that they want to happen. So what your grandfather said, the graveyard is absolutely the richest place in the world. Sadly,
Yeah.
you can't uncover those ideas, that have died with people, nor that energy. But if you're alive and you're watching the show and you're listening to what she just said, what Gladys just said, is don't transition without making something poignant happen for you, your family, your friends, and others.
I was interviewing someone yesterday and she said to me, it's funnily enough, we were talking about Bob Proctor, and she said to me, the day that I transformed was because he said this sentence to me. And I have to admit, I've never heard him saying it. She said, actually, I can read it, so I'm not he said, did you know that nothing in this entire universe would move in the precise order it moves in your absence? Did you know that if you weren't here, the universe would literally be out of alignment? I love that because that's what you're talking about. Every one of us have to step up and play our part. It's not about Vladi and creating my mini world. It's about really making a difference, but in a way, how we can impact kids. I love what you were talking about, and I really love about the education and stuff. I was always considered I grew up in a Catholic family too. And I wasn't actually exposed to these materials. In fact, I was riding the bike before I started these things, and then it made more things. So I remember when even Peggy said to me, like, you're grasping these materials quite fast. It wasn't that I was grasping it. I already applied it so many times. I just didn't know what I was doing. And I wasn't always doing it correctly. Even up till now, I have days where I don't apply it, but surrounding yourself, but people who have wisdom like you, someone who's got experience and he's been in this, it's an impeccable. And these days, people just create these little camps. It's like this is me and my people and my employees, and everything is my label. And we are one. We're working together. If we get together and rise together, but I'm talking about consciousness level, not just, doing we are so strong together. This is why even in the past, and funnily enough, talking about my grandfather, he was in a Second World War, so he was fighting in there, and he did say to me that all these great leaders, did not like these people who rise together because it's a threat to them. So we
Oh,
get so much manipulation in the world, and people like you're mentioning, us understanding your mind and understanding how powerful you are. You're such a special, unique, and gifted person, and every one of you. But where it usually starts, and I'll hand it back to Rex, is because he will tell us more about this, and he obviously is using all his principles in his book. But it goes wrong where we go start comparing ourselves. Oh, but I can't do this. Look at that person. And the competition gets in. It's you versus you. Am I better? I always look, and this is something I've learned from Bob Proctor. Am I better today than I was yesterday? What can I get better at? How can I grow more? How can I respond and not react? And learn from those. But the minute I start saying, oh, he's got more and she has more and she's higher, we all really the same in the
yeah.
core. We're spiritual being having this experience, but we're not using the principles and applying them correctly. And that's your book about. So what would you say? Everything I said, obviously tell us more, but what would you say to people who say, oh, there's so many principles? And I know we can't pinpoint because people are always looking for that one answer they can apply and change their life forever. But I remember gratitude and pretty much taking responsibility was my kind of starting point because until I really sat down and said, I'm responsible for how I live in my life so far. And I wasn't impressed saying it. I was like, well, I can't, this is not what I wanted. But we also attract what we don't want. And I paid too much attention into things I can't have. And that's why it wasn't happening.
Well, a great question and great points that you made. I really appreciate that. The the thing for people to understand first off is yes, we are react to the world around us, but we have a choice and can respond. And until we learn that we can respond as opposed to react from habit out of our conditioning, what we got growing up, and even that's being reinforced every single day unless you decide to do something about it, um, you'll continue to react. So the key is to discovering your choice. And that's why the title Life on Your Terms. The other thing is some of these concepts are very lofty, they're very heady, they're very kind of out there, and somebody may say, well, they're very simple too. I agree. I try to save the philosophy, the other side to it, um, uh, and put it, into context in the book so that the book is a very practical, step-by-step, methods-based principle and practice approach to being able to transform. So, and here's why. Before humans were on this planet, things happened. We had catastrophes, we had plate shifts, we had earthquakes, fires, lightning strikes, Dinosaurs disappeared, meteors, rain, whatever. Nobody was there to call it a good or bad day or a good or bad thing. It just was whatever it was. Once humans arrived, they could judge it. They could say, well, this fire came, it wiped out the crops. Now I have to plant somewhere else. So therefore, that was bad and it's causing me extra hard work. And now I have to do this or I have to scavenge or I have to do something else. Oh, woe is me. And the thing is it was going on before we got here and it's going to go on always while we're here and if we leave or transition. That is how the universe works. The universe is expanding, and at the same time it's expanding and increasing, it's falling apart. That's the notion of entropy. It's kind of like you blow up a balloon. As you blow up the balloon and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it's also getting weaker and weaker and weaker to the point where it could pop. Now, that's not to be scary. That's to say that every battery has a positive and a negative pole. So, and there's a law of polarity, which means for every cause there's an effect, and for every effect there's a cause. What we assign or we think of as negative isn't negative. That's the label that the human mind puts on it. It's just something. It's just an event. It's just a circumstance. It's just another person. Then because we are able to think and to reason and to plan and to imagine and to create and to worry and to fear and to do all these things, then we assign meaning to it. That's what we are. We are meaning makers. We make meaning of our experience.
Mhm.
Without us, as far as we know, animals don't do that. So without us, there's no meaning in the universe. There's no meaning to the universe except the meaning that we assign it. Now, this is a lofty principle, but it's a practical principle too, because it's like when you look at your circumstances and you look at other people say, well, those people are energy vampires. I don't want to be around them. And I go, do you think Buddha said that? Do you think Jesus said that? Do you think Lao Tzu says that? Do you think, I mean, in other words, you're a battery on the planet. You are positive and negative energy. You are creating energy and frequency and vibration and all that. You have more than enough energy to do anything. Even science now says, your cells light, they emit light. The DNA emits light. You know, so guess what? You have all the energy you need to do anything you want to do. It's not that you don't have it. People say, I don't have energy. I need my coffee. I can't get going. I sleep all day. I don't. It's not that you don't have energy. It's that you aren't managing the energy that you have. And you might have to manage it through diet, through mental diet, through physical diet, through exercise, through a spiritual program, but you need to learn how to manage your energy. The same thing you need to do is learn how to assign a meaning to the event that works for you instead of against you. My third chapter, for example, says there's no such thing as self-sabotage. One of the worst notions in psychological history is that you sabotage yourself because you can't.
Interesting.
Yeah, but think of it this way. You have a conscious mind and you have a subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is trillions of times more powerful than the conscious mind. So imagine that you're a captain on a steamship or one of these gigantic cruise ships, now the biggest sailing vessels on the planet. And you go, I want to go from this port to that port. Well, you don't do it. You might
Mhm.
start the engine, you might steer it, but it gets you there.
Yes.
It's not going to sabotage you if it hits a rock or if the engine fails or if you are confused about your directions and it's not the ship can't sabotage you. The engine doesn't sabotage your brain doesn't sabotage. It does what it learned to do. It does what it's been programmed to do. It does what it's conditioned to do. It does what it does. And then you or I say, wait, I don't like it doing that. I want to do something different. So you say, I don't like being broke. I want to be rich. And then people say, I sabotage myself whenever I try to do it. No, what you're doing is you're trying to go against trillions and trillions and trillions of power, and then you're blaming that power for not giving you what you want. What you have to do is what a dog trainer or a horse trainer does. If you don't know how to ride a horse and you
Hmm.
get on a horse, if that horse is one of those stable horses that just goes around in a circle, it will take you wherever it wants to go. And when the ride is
Yes.
over, or it'll buck you off, or whatever. But if you learn how to ride the horse, then you tell the horse where you want to go, and the horse takes you
Yes.
there. That's what people need to learn about their subconscious. You have to tell it what to do because it's going to do whatever it learned, and it's learned some pretty, really amazing things. It's learned to keep you alive and to keep you thriving. And if you're alive today, it's successful in that. Whether you're
Yes.
thriving or not is that's what its intention is, but whether you're thriving or not depends on the instructions you give it. So if you're
Yes.
giving it crappy instructions, don't blame your brain, don't blame your subconscious,
Mm,
don't blame God, don't blame the universe. Say, I need to learn how to do this appropriately and correctly so that I start getting the results. Because if you don't train the horse right, the horse, you can't blame the horse if it doesn't do what you want it to do.
true.
Don't blame the ship if the captain doesn't have a clue what's going on.
Mm,
So this is what people need to understand. If it's to be, it's up to me, is the famous saying, or I always say, if it's come true, it's up to you, because you and I are the ones that make it real. And instead of assigning the meaning that my brain is screwing with me and is sabotaging me, say, assign the thing saying, I have not yet learned how to successfully direct my mind to get the things that I want, but I can learn to do that.
mhm.
And if you can learn to do that and you start learning to do that, that's what my book is for. Teach people how to do this. And by the way, you can't teach anything. You can
Yes.
present stuff and then they either use
Yes.
it or they don't use it, but I can't unscrew their heads, pour it in them and make them do it, and I'm not there 24 hours a day to go, be sure
Yes.
you. So you have to be inspired from the inside out. It's not there. Motivational speakers is a misnomer too. Nobody motivates you. They may say things that inspire you, but motivation comes from within.
Yeah.
And so if your reasons for doing something are grandiose enough, big enough, large enough, Napoleon Hill said it this way, and I'll pass it back to you. He said if you can conceive it and bring yourself to believe it, then you can achieve it. Now, there's two important things. You can't live in a reality that you can't yet imagine. You can't conceive it. That's why
Yes.
in the book and elsewhere you say living from the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Conceive of yourself as the person you want to be, having what you want to have, doing what you want to do, as if it's already the case, right? Then he says, if you can bring yourself to believe that,
Mm,
and that's the key. What you and I have to do is develop the certainty that what you conceive, what I conceive, I can accomplish. Because if you can believe it and are certain that you will do it, then you have the chance of doing it. That's what the Wright brothers did. With the Wright brothers, when they were working on their aircraft, they didn't honestly know whether they could fly or not. Nobody had ever done it.
mm.
Nobody built a heavier than air aircraft. But they kept experimenting, and their dad said, "You guys are idiots. The neighbors think you're crazy. Give it up." I mean, experts said, "Man was meant to fly. He'd have wings." The whole thing, everything. And they kept failing, fail, 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 fail. Things didn't work out. Things broke. Things didn't happen. They couldn't take off. They didn't know what was going on. All this kind of stuff, right? And then one day they flew, 11 seconds long. One day they flew. That's when they knew that that's when they knew how to fly. It was after they did it. Until they did it, they didn't know how to fly. They were experimenting.
Yes.
And that's what we as people do. We experiment, we assign meaning. And if you say, this is a failure, this is a hardship, this is a problem, this sucks, I hate this is suck, then you spiral down into that because what you focus on, you get. If you say, hey, I don't know how to do it yet, but I could learn, I have an opportunity here to experiment and try a lot of different things. And then it's about how patient you are. They say Edison did 10,000, times he tried to make the light
Yes.
bulb. So you have to stick with it. You have to bring yourself to believe it and then do it. And when Hill is asked, why didn't you say if you can conceive it and bring yourself to believe it, then you will achieve it? He said, because I don't know what you're going to do with it. You might not do anything with it. So
Mhm.
you can achieve it. And if you will achieve it, that's up to you.
It's so true. That was so profound because I remember looking at I grew up well, I was born in Czechoslovakia, but then we split. So I grew up in Slovakia, but moved to UK 26 years ago now. And some of the cultural beliefs, it was like there was the same. I just knew they said, well, if you go there, you can't do that. I speak zero English when I came here. And I felt
Wow.
like I had to step back, I had to start learning, I had to take a jobs but there were so many things I've learned because I just went for it. And my parents taught me certain things that it's not meant for us. And, like we're not that sort of people. And they didn't mean well. They meant well because, that was the best they could do. And that was their awareness and level of experience. So didn't think. But I pushed it. I was always the one who was like, no, there's more out there. I'm going to go out there and discover the world. And there was the calling. It really is about calling because I felt I had never any proper explanation because I feel I must do this, that's it. And I follow this up till now. And I really believe that that's partly why I'm where I am. Because as you're talking, people think, oh, I'll try this 5 times. It's funny because I was listening actually to one of the recordings with Henry Ford. It was the same. He said, you must see it in your mind, your imagination, a precise picture, a, to a very detail. And I knew, and when the guys were coming back to me and said, this cannot be done, I said, go away and do it. Go away and do it. Go away and do it. He knew it can be done. And everyone else was telling him, this cannot be done.
All the
And it was
experts.
done.
Yeah.
But I also know that spiritually, as you were talking about the energies, it really is the energies, the law of polarity is very, very real. And it's sometimes we're challenging a status quo with this breakthrough and pushing through terror barriers. So obviously the other side pushes back because it's like this balance kind of a fight. Yes. So never giving up means you are going for with your full heart for what you believe. And people just, as you said, it's really great because there was Neil Donald Walsh who was pointing this out. And one of the webinars I attended with him, he said, we put labels on us. It's like we're labeling things which don't exist. And when you were talking about labeling and how we see things, everything just is. So why are you charging it with opinion just because from the current place where you stand and the level of awareness you have and level of understanding, you charge this with opinion? But everything just is. It's the energy. We know Emerson said, energy is the law of the laws. I know it was the laws of cause and effect. But when you're talking about, I love that, your book, I love what you're talking about. I'm totally taking this on my next holiday, which is in 3 weeks. Because I haven't read it yet, guys. It arrived last night, but I absolutely just freaked through. And I love that Rex is talking about application because it really doesn't matter. You order all the books, and I can vouch for this. I mean, I went into a personal development 6 years ago, and everything that Bob told us to buy, I would have bought. So I had this shelf help, like you're literally filling the shelves and you're feeling great about it. But I'm a type of a student who loves reading and dwelling on it. And I'm like, I'm happy to stay on a chapter and then just pick another book and stay in a chapter because it's calling me. Almost I know where I need to and I'm one of those who listens to things for one recording 30 days, sometimes 60 days. One of the recordings 90 days. I really feel like this rush energy. We're living in this world. Everything's just rush. I don't have a time. I'm busy. People don't calm. And when you find yourself, I started this discipline. It's going to be 2 years in summer. So year and a half, I do 45 minutes, nothing. And it's still challenging. By nothing, I mean nothing, like sitting. Your thoughts, first 10 minutes go like, is this kind of crazy race. And then it's only after sort of 15 minutes when I can feel quieting it down, paying attention to the leaves and really bringing awareness into what's around me. That has been the best discipline I've developed over the last year. Well, I haven't developed it, but I've practiced it for a year and a half. Oh, sorry, that was a wrong set. But, it's when you quiet. And I've read a paper on the sea when you have the hurricanes that the middle is called eye. And apparently the right middle eye of the hurricane is very calm. And I remember Bob used to tell us all the time, write and read the serenity, listen to the serenity. Because when you calm yourself, you're paying attention to your energies, you're paying attention to yourself, the inner power. And I love what Rex was describing with the energy. You have all the energy you need. How are you applying? It's not the amount you're reading, and people almost say, well, I know all the laws. I've read all these books. I know what it means. But do we really know that we're really applying the principles the way we should? And the way that is more, I love Rex describing, you can have instructions to everything, but really living it, I'm a hiker, I'm a climber. And I remember when I took my kids to scouts and they were doing the climbing on the wall and they were describing something. I'm like, that's not how it works on a live wall. It's just a different story because you have to be out there. It's about being present. You take a step when you climb. You can't be thinking, how am I going to get up? Okay, yes, that's your aim. But you can only be present to that part in front of you because if you think, and you don't worry about what you already done. Because if you failed this part, you're never going to make it up. So you need to bring everything you have to push yourself up one level. And it's always a team. So we're one up, one down. There's few of us. So you are rising together. And this is why I really love working with people and doing things together because you cannot be successful alone. It's all of
Great.
us bringing all this and learning from people who's done it and Rex's experience and stuff. He applied the stuff. That's why he is where he is. What would you recommend? Like, I know you talked about the stuff, but sometimes what's the best benefit for people? How should they study your book? Or is there any kind of extra tip
No,
you could give them?
great question because yeah, I wrote the book to be me as a guide whispering in their ear. It's like I'm speaking to you privately and encouraging you to do things. In tiny little bits, and I do it places they, go back and reread this or go do this or do that. It's always wise. I love what you said. It's truly golden, but to make a study of it, stay with things for a long time. A lot of people read books like they read a fiction book or go to a movie. They're there to get to the ending, and then they go, "Oh, I read this." And you can ask somebody like, have you read Think and Grow Rich?" And they go, "Yeah, I read it like a few years ago or whatever." I've read Think and Grow Rich like Bob Proctor almost every day of my life for over 50 years since I was 6 years old. My mom read it, and then when I was about 11, I started reading all these books on my own. There's about a year and a half when I had my problem, 18 months or more, that I had stopped reading and got into difficulty. So make a study of it, apply it, take it bit by bit, do a little bit each day. You don't have to, don't overwhelm yourself. Um, but the important thing is I wrote the book to encourage people to understand that one, you can do this. Two, it is possible to do it alone. There's a lot of potential there, but to be really powerful and become unstoppable, you need to do it with somebody else. You need a coach, a guide, a mentor, somebody, or a team of people who can help you get through this. Um, and there's a reason for that, is because every athlete, and I write about one in my book, Jamie Nieto is this two-time Olympic champion high jumper who became paralyzed through an accident after the 2016 Olympics. And I found out that I won't tell you the story, but I found out that he had become a quadriplegic. And I messaged him and said, if anybody knows how to get to move again and reclaim their life, it's you. And it had happened in April, and this was around December. And then I met with him a little while later, this was October. Then I met with him in December. He said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I am." So Jamie's up and walking and doing. He's fathered two children. He's got his life back. He's an actor, writer, producer. He does this, and he continues to inspire people in the athletic world. But the reason why athletes are so good at what they do is because they understand that they need to wire in these neural patterns through repetition and correct repetition consistently in order to get the results that they want. So they rehearse it in their mind, they imagine it, because we know visualization works.
Mhm.
In fact, I'm known as the attitude doctor, the mindset master. And the hardest thing, it seems, and I say that loosely, and why I wrote the book and why I do what I do, and why I've done for 50 years going around the planet and people coming around the planet to see me, is attitude is the number one predictor for success in all areas of your life, every single area of your life, spiritual, mental, financial, emotional, behavioral, youth, whatever, relations, everything. And
Mhm.
and yet it's the last thing that people work on. They want to
Mhm.
fix their problem, they want to change the person, they want to change their environment, they want to make things different, and they put the cart before the horse. It's be, do, have. And what society teaches us is if you want to be successful or happy, you have to work really hard, sacrifice, struggle, do
Yes.
all these things so that you can have what you want to acquire, money, fame, wealth, prestige, power, trophy, whatever, so that you are a person of importance. And that's what most people try to do. So when it comes to their problems, they try and solve their problem before they solve themselves. I have a program called Create Your Best Life using Einstein and Tesla's genius,
Mhm.
which is a program I offer right now, but it always. But I mean, it, it's about how do you become more creative? How do you solve problems? How do you release stress? How do you become more intuitive? How do you use your genius to live the kind of life that you would like to live and become that person for whom manifesting goodness is easy? What a lot of
Mhm.
people do is they stand on a boat, like one foot on the dock, one foot on the boat, and they don't go anywhere. I'd like to make money, but I'm afraid. I'd like to do that, but I don't have time. I'd like to go to dinner, but I can't afford it. I like to do they can't and they want it, but they can't do it. They want it, but they can't do it. Want it, but they can't do it. They never go anywhere. In order to get somewhere, you have to get both feet off the dock and get into the boat and then journey to the destination. And here's the thing. You may not get to that destination.
Yes.
You may die before you get to that destination. So what do you have? What do you have that's important? You have the journey. So how
Enjoy
you
the journey.
is all you have. How you journey matters. When I was a kid, I would lie on the back seat or on the floor of my parents' car while traveling to someplace, whether it was like a Disneyland kind of event or a relative. I go, "Are we
Mhm.
there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there? I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this." That's how many people go through life.
Mhm.
They think about this. If you have money problems, let's say, and some people
Mhm.
have had money problems, it's no different than the person who says, "I've had this problem since I was a child. My father mistreated me, my mother mistreated me, I was bullied, whatever." And they go, "I'm a survivor of this, I'm a survivor of that." And with all due respect, I understand. But the point is if 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, 40 years later, 50 years later, they're still grappling with that same issue. It's like imagine wearing every single piece of clothing you've ever worn in your life and not taking it off and carrying it around with you to today. So however old you are, if you were every, you'd not be able to move. And
Yes.
that's what happens with people. They invest their time, money, energy, and effort in having a problem. And what
Mhm.
they don't realize is the cost of that problem in terms of the minutes, the hours, the days, the weeks, the months, the years that they've spent having that problem without resolving it. So if they're broke and they're broke 10 years later, they've spent 10 years worrying about finances. They spent 10 years daily, at the end of the month, looking at their checkbook, going, "Oh, I don't have any money. I wish I had money." There's a cost spiritually, mentally, physically,
Yes.
emotionally, behaviorally, and there's chronic stress and there's all these. And what I wanted to do was alleviate that for people, help people do that. And so the book is a starting place. I invite people to join me. Because what a coach can do, what a mentor can do, what a book cannot do is a coach, and every athlete knows this, and every entrepreneur worth
Yes.
their salt knows this, is that they have coaches and mentors because they can see the blind spots, they know the problems. I consider myself a tour guide. I go, "Look at the
Mhm.
pretty waterfall. Oh, see that bird up there. Oh, look at the mountains. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, look out for that pothole. Oh, don't step in that." It's pointing out the things that other people don't see
Mhm.
and helping them connect themselves up. And here's the other really important thing, going back to kind of the philosophy. Everything is going on, what you said about sitting and doing nothing. Just go outside and sit and listen and notice that you'll hear an ambient sound and maybe you'll hear a dog bark or a bird thing, or you'll hear a car or a horn or a person happen or some kids laughing or a truck doing something or somebody sawing something. But then notice that all this is happening together. Your attention is going from one to the other, but all this is simultaneous. It's like a concert. They're all playing together at the
Yes.
same time, a symphony, and you're listening, but you may hear the violins at one point, or the percussion at another point, or the horns at another point, but it's all being played together. Well, the universe is like that. We're all in it together. It's ongoing, and all of us are connected. It's like if you were to look at a forest, which we can't see, but we do know, that underground, there all these roots and things are connected,
Yeah.
and what looks like a tree here and a tree there are actually connected underneath. We're all connected. We're all one species, and we're
Good.
consciousness. The thing is that it's these individual flesh pods, that walk around. We have the ability to think and to plan and to worry and to fear but to make things. We can move things. I can pick something up and put something down. You know,
Mhm.
we are creatures of volition for the most part. Not everyone, sadly. Some people have different neurological or physical impairments. But the point is that we're all in this together. And if you understand that, if you create your best life for yourself and are willing to help another person create their best life, that together, the combined energy of us all with that intention and that purpose would create an incredible planet, because it's about cooperation and collaboration. What society has, you think, is it's about competition, it's about limited
Yes.
resources. It's about fight and crush and kill and maim and hurt and do that and defend and do, and so we're always getting these messages of fear, of lack, of insufficiency, of being powerless, so that we can be controlled through chaos and confusion, through deception. And when the truth is, the few people who make a huge difference in the world, not all of them are good people.
Yes, you're right.
Not all of them are bad people. I mean,
Yeah.
there are genuine philanthropists who have lots of money. Like Jeff Bezos' wife, when he criticized her, said, "You're giving your money away. That's stupid." She gave more money away. She's like, "I'm going to do what I want to do with my money." So it's we all have the opportunity to one transform ourselves. What
Yes.
that means is we actually take what's invisible and make it visible. It's from within to without, or from above to below. It's using our power to make our dreams, which are only dreams in our head, some physical reality. And that happens when somebody builds a road or a building or a house or a car or a bottle of water. They're taking an idea and they're translating that idea into a tangible physical product that we could use. And you can do that. And whether it's a physical product that you transmute or an idea, a writer, a novelist, conceives of a story. But the
Yes.
story will die and be in the graveyard, the richest place in the world, according to your grandfather. And I think that should be according to all of us, will die unless the person puts it down on paper and gets it out.
True.
Napoleon Hill's Outwitting the Devil was his second book after Law of Attraction, after Laws of Success. I
Do you
think
know
he
what's
wrote.
funny? I just ordered it and I've never read it before.
Well, and
It
I have a
arrived
book
last
study. I
week.
have the Outwitting the book study available. So I mean, I do that book study. I do a Think and Grow Rich book study. I'm doing a Life on Your Own Terms book study. I got a lot of different things I'm doing right now.
I love that Rex is, sorry to interrupt you. I love that Rex is mentioning it because I'm going to jump in and say if you order your book and you take the code on Amazon and you go into, you can see on the Rex is, you can actually see it because you will be able to see it in the interview, but I will put it in the description as well. And it's rexsykes.com/book. He offers an incredible bonus of a program you can join for, was it worth $500?
Yeah, it's 400, normally $497. It's called the Mastery Loop, and it's how you master your thoughts, your feelings, your words, your behaviors, and any talent or skill that you'd like or ability that you'd like to master. It's the process that we go through. So it's about learning how we learn and recapturing that joy of learning. So it's a perfect accompaniment to the book. And yeah, you just take your receipt code, and that's if you buy from Amazon, you get a receipt. You take that receipt number,
Yes.
and you go to that website that Vladdy just told you about. It's down there, rexsikes.com/book, and you follow the instructions. You put your receipt code in, you'll get an access to the online program immediately.
Which shows a really generous heart because this is a Rex is actually walking the talk. He's talking about how you apply, and he's helping you to apply it even better because you know that. And then obviously you can reach out to his and speak to him, and he's providing coaching and services. You can always just reach out, and he will come back. But it's so important what you said, because we can I just stand up to it. And like I really would like to say this because people say, well, I don't have a choice. This is all happening to me. And this is wake up. Like we are in the best times of awakening because there's more and more people bringing right stuff. However, there is what Rex said, you have a choice. Not all the people are using it for the good. And it's not a judgment to everyone, it is what it is. But you follow really what you follow your heart. Because I can feel from Rex's energy and the way he's been serving people and the way he's been producing. I'm going to follow him as well because it's fascinating. I'm going to go to the program. I always love to learn. And I love to learn from people who live this. It's not about, sometimes we talk about, I have to have, like, when I was younger, my grandmother used to say to me, you are a forever student, which I am. It's funny because that's been even spiritually, my gurus always said to me, you're connected to an animal of owl and you will forever be studying. I said, yes.
My
I
favorite, my
love
favorite
studying.
quote, yeah, I don't want to, it's a David Lynch quote from Twin Peaks, which is the owls are not as they seem.
Oh, I will look that up. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I love that. It's one of my favorites, and it's obscure
I've
to
never
the
heard of it.
story. But if your owl is your spirit animal, what a great one to have.
Oh, I don't know much about it, but I'm loving the sound of an owl. And she used to say you could wallpaper your wall with the certificates. But let's face it, are you really collecting riches and the wisdom and experience and learning to apply? Or is it all about following ticking boxes to have and accomplishing because it's materialism? If you're there, I've met someone who was quite wealthy in New York, and he said to me, the biggest transformation that happened to me was when he went through a lots of troubles as actually Rex with love life and stuff. What he did, he lost everything. He lost the business. He took himself to India for 3 years, lived with the monks, gave up every materialistic possession he ever had. He said, when I came back, I rebuilt my business. I was way more successful. But I hired a team and I understood the real life, and I started using the money in a different way.
I did something very similar.
Mhm.
I lived in an ashram for up to 5 years, and then but I could come and go. But for 2 months, 3 or 4 years into it, I went silent for 2 months.
Mhm.
And that was a really interesting experience. You're talking about just doing nothing.
Yes.
The minute you say, I'm not going to talk, everything about you wants to talk. I mean, it's that pushback. It's the bird needs both wings to
Yes.
fly. So, but then after a few days, I was like, I never want to speak again. I mean, it was really
Mm.
hard to come back and talk after 2 months of that because you get, and that's what athletes, we're talking back about that muscle memory that they condition themselves so that whenever they have to perform, they don't have to think about it
Yes.
because you have to talk yourself through it. Like I'm going to race and I'm going to get to the goal. If you have to do that, you're already late. So you have to already imagine that you're at the goal and then let your body carry you without conscious interference. And what a lot of people do, we used to talk about choices. I always say it this way: there's dog crap and diamonds, dog crap and diamonds, dog crap and diamonds. You get to choose. And most people, sadly, either they don't know they have a choice and so they're in the dog crap, or they choose dog crap because that's what's most familiar to them.
Yes.
The reason why we have hardships, if you want to think of it this way, the reason we have obstacles and problems is to get you to move. If you're
Mhm.
comfortable sitting on the couch watching TV and eating donuts, unless there's a flood or a fire or the phone rings or you have to go to the bathroom or something, you can just stay there. So
Mhm.
hardship and circumstances come along to get us to move. All innovation in humankind came as a result of discomfort or the ability to improve on something. So it was too hot, we developed refrigeration and air conditioning. It was too cold, we developed heating and clothing to stay, in shelters. Most of my work has been with people from all walks of life, and a lot of those were top of the top CEOs, top doctors and lawyers, whatever, and a lot of millionaires and billionaires. And the interesting thing about that is, so many of them have come to me and said, "I don't know what to do. I feel
Mhm.
unhappy and unfulfilled. And look, I have everything a person could want. I have all this stuff, and it's meaningless." And that's because most people chase those things, thinking
Yes.
those things will make them happy, and then they get those things and find out they're still unhappy, but they got a lot of things, and then they feel worse because they went, well, that didn't work. Now what to do? You said about the choice, and the thing is that if you only have two choices, it's I do this or I do that, I do this or I do that, and so a lot of people just stay the same. Muhammad Ali said, I knew I wanted to be the best boxer in the world, the greatest. So even though I hated training and getting up and running and following cars and doing all this stuff, he said I knew I had to do that in order to be the greatest. So his purpose drove him. His purpose is what allowed him to become the greatest because
Mhm.
in pursuing that, he transformed himself. But a lot of people just give up. Now, if you have too many choices, which is where we are in the world today, you don't know who to listen to, you don't know what to pay attention to, you don't know what's true, you don't know what's not true.
Yes.
There's tons of books, there's tons of videos,
You're right.
there's tons of podcasts, there's everything. And so all this if you have too many choices, it's overwhelming. So people do nothing then either. They go, well, it's easier just to stay in the bubble and hang out with people who are like I don't want to hang out with people who are like me. I want people who challenge me. I mean, I like like-minded
Yes.
people,
I
but
agree.
I want the others as well. So here's the thing. You have to understand, as you said, you have a choice, but if you do nothing with that choice, nothing changes. And the other
Mhm.
thing is you have to know who to listen to and who to pay attention to, because not everything is created equal. There's a lot of information that's out there that's wrong, and it's from the very gurus who a lot of people know and everything else. In other words, if they're telling you to work really hard, crush it, 10x it, you have to take massive action, you don't. That's why I wrote the book. You can do it in a fun and easy and gentle way, a permissive way. Yes, you can bootstrap it. Yes, you can punch yourself in the butt, if you want to. But the point is that kids as children learn more through play and singing and dancing and chasing butterflies and using their imagination. Now they're all on iPhone. I mean, think about that. They're being robbed of the opportunity to use their
Yes.
brain in ways that we got to use when we were growing up that they will never ever know because everything is done for them. You know,
Mhm.
your app on your phone that stores your phone numbers shouldn't replace your ability to remember the phone numbers. But it does. Your GPS replaces your ability to read a map or find a way to get there. So you're now
Yes.
relying on a techno, and it's all wonderful, but it's a tool, and you have to understand that the tool is for your use, not to replace you and not to do it for you, but to make things
Mhm.
easy. So children learned more playing than they did when they went got to school, and then they were told to sit in the desk, be quiet, stop fidgeting, and if they fidget and they walk around, then they have to medicate them. I mean, all sorts of stuff that goes on, and because they're not good learners. You're a learning machine. You learn to have
Yes.
everything you do, you've learned. From the time you were born to now, you've learned it. You've learned some good things, some amazing things, and you learn some things that keep you stuck and hold you back and make you afraid and have you fearful and all those things. But you can learn to undo that. In school, for example, they went, "You got 98 wrong. You only had two right. You're stupid," right? Instead of going, "Wow, you have two right. Let's do it again. Maybe you
Mhm.
get three right. That's awesome. Who knows? But you knew two things." We
Yes.
don't emphasize what we want. We don't encourage people to move in the right direction. We go, "Look at how far you are from where you should be." And then we criticize them and then make them feel bad. And then they feel bad and they grow up going, "I can't learn things. I don't know how to do this. I need to think."
Yes.
So you first have to be teachable. You have to be open to wanting to learn and wanting to change. Because if you're not open to wanting to change and wanting to, the three most dangerous words that I address this in the book are "I know that." And I would see people come into my workshops, and I still do. They come in and say, "I have a guy I'm working with right now." I'll say, "Well, you know what would be?" He's going, "Oh, no, I know that. I know that." Well, if you knew that, why aren't you doing it? Why do I
Mhm.
have to point it out? And how come every time I point it out, you go, "I know that"? There's this
Yes.
Zen story of the master who's giving tea to the disciple, and he pours the tea. You know the story, and the cup
Yes.
overflows. The student goes, "Wait, wait, wait, wait! It's overflowing." He goes, "Yeah, go empty your cup, and when you're ready, come back, and I'll be able to fill it." You have to be able to be willing to learn, to be teachable, to be empty, to be open, and so few are. And they come to a coach or a guide, and then the coach or guide tells them something. Go, "No, I'm not going to do that." Goes, "Then what did you?
Mm.
Why are you paying me? What are you doing if you're not going to listen to me?" So the thing is that athletes and entrepreneurs who understand this put themselves in the hands of capable, qualified coaches or mentors so that they can be better and perform their jobs or their tasks or their passions easier with more joy and more finesse and more power. And they don't go through all of the rest. And yet so many people, here if I said, "Hey, I've got a program and it costs $20," or I go, "It costs $20,000," and your first thought is, "I'd like to do that, but I can't afford it.
Mhm.
I don't have the time. I'd like to, but I'm busy." Well, then you
Mhm.
don't really want to.
Yes.
And if those thoughts are coming up, those are your excuses and your reasons and the very things that will keep you stuck forever. Because, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yes.
So, and this is, I'll close it with this.
No, it's great. It's a
My favorite,
really,
go ahead.
no, carry on. This is
I was gonna say my
fantastic the
favorite
way
my
you put
favorite
it.
character. There's two favorite characters in my well, there's a lot of them in Think and Grow Rich with Napoleon Hill, but one is Edward C. Barnes, who as a hobo, dressed as a hobo, went to see Thomas Edison, put him on notice that he was going to be his partner. And Hill writes, what might have started as a wish or a whim became a white hot obsession, so much so that without like looking like a bum, he hopped a freight train, didn't have any money, went to Orange, New Jersey to meet Edison. Edison met with him, couldn't hear a word he was saying because he's like the guy's mumbling to him, and said, "I gave him a job as a janitor, but I saw the look in his eye and knew he was a person. There's something going on. He's a person worth giving a job." And years later, he said, "I couldn't hear a word." He didn't say. But anyway, so Edward C. Barnes goes to Edison to say, "I'm going to be your partner. We're going to be partners, right?" And Edison goes, "You can be my janitor." He takes the job as a janitor. He was willing. He took it. It was an opportunity, right? He took it. He said for 5 years, nothing happened in his environment that would ever give him any reason to think he was going to be Edison's partner. Circumstances didn't change. He was just a janitor doing his job. until one day an opportunity opened. But during those 5 years, he prepared himself. He kept his passion alive. He kept doing it. And then at one point, many years later, the the salespeople were complaining they couldn't sell a particular dictograph that Edison had come out with, and that they were going to lose money on it. And he said, "I'll do it." And Edison said, "Okay, you can do it." Rest was history. It became known as built by Edison, sold by Barnes. They became partners. He retired as a young man, very wealthy in Florida. And the other is Gunselus, this minister who said, "If I had $1 million," and wrote a speech. He said he needed money and he didn't know what to do, so he wrote a speech. If I had $1 million, he put it in those days, you advertised in the paper, "I'm going to do this sermon." He gave the sermon and he forgot his notes. He lost them and he got there and said, "Oh, shoot, I'll wing it." And he did. And at the end of the sermon, this guy walked up to him and said, "See me this week. I have the money you need to do this." And the rest became history. The guy was Armour from the meat famous Armour food brand or whatever in Chicago, and put together the Armour Institute for Gunselus so that they could teach and share these things. So the information is there. It's in my book. We're talking about it. It's all around you. But if you're missing it, then you do need some extra stuff. You can read the book. You can
Yes.
do the program that comes with the book. You can come to me for coaching. I mean, the point is to do something to transform your life. Because if you do nothing, nothing will change. And if you sit there wishing it would be different, and you're sitting with a problem that you've had for some time, the cost of that problem is so immense. But the freedom from that
Mm,
problem is absolutely possible. And again, you have the potential alone, but together you can be unstoppable.
I love it. Thank you so much. Your wisdom is absolutely amazing. I love the way you put things. You explain them in a really great way. And I'll be your student too. I mean, I really say this, like when you feel people meaning, they speak from their heart, they have this, I'm so fascinated because I can see the more I'm studying, I can see there's so much more and we can never cover. Even close. I remember when Bob Proctor used to say, I hardly scraped the surface with these materials. And at the age of 86, when he said, well, he said it probably earlier, but I thought like, wow, if that man says that, but the truth is, it's the journey. And I'm going to end it with that. Find joy in the journey. Joy is one of my core values. I love growth, freedom, and joy. Obviously, I'm not talking family, I'm talking my personal core values. And really, it's about find joy in everything. But don't rush through this life and don't complain and don't look out what's not working and what isn't there because you can change it today. It takes one committed decision, and really that's it is. That's the first step is making a decision and stepping into it. Thank you so
Excellent.
much for
Thank
everything. It was brilliant. I will put all the Rex's details, so reach out to him and please buy the book. Use the code to use his program, which is amazing, and start doing something today. Do something today. Your future self will say thank you to you. Bye.
Thank you.